At this point, I'd like to emphasize that it is very useful and important to learn how to do this, not just in the key of C, but in all the useful guitar keys that you typically play in, which are the keys that don't have sharp or flat after their name. Basically, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. Those are the guitar keys. Okay, so you want to try to learn to say in the key of E. E is a big guitar key, right? You know, two of the strings are E. It just lends itself to that. So, for instance, you want to practice your E major scale up and down each string. The fingering isn't important at this point. You're finding notes, and you're looking at it as if it were a number line in math. That's what you're looking at the string, and you're seeing the half steps and the whole steps, and you're hearing, that you're training. You're hearing that little minor second interval, major second interval, major second. So I'll play the low E note. I'm gonna do the same thing on the B string. Find E. Always beginning and ending on the root note, going as high as you can go while staying within the scale, and then going as low as you can go. You might find it helpful to sing the Do, Re, Mi song from The Sound of Music. Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, and then memorize it backwards. Do, Ti, La, Sol, Fa, Mi, Re, Do. Okay, so again, you would play the E major scale on all the remaining strings. I'll give you one more example on the third string. We're going to start by finding E, in which you should know is at the 9th fret, because G, your octave G note, is at the 12th fret. G, F, E. Okay, so you found E, and you're going to apply the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 major scale formula to that. And at this point, you may be kind of fishing for notes because you're still learning it, but you're getting valuable ear training. So if you don't have a keyboard bass pedals like I do, you can just hit your low string, use that as a reference note, and go. Hit it again. Notice I didn't hit the open string because that's a foreign note to the E major scale. So again, recite and sing the major scale formula. 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I won't waste your time going over the remaining strings. You should know how to do that by now because I thoroughly explained it with the C major scale. You're going to find E, and then walk up and down the E major scale on this string. You're going to start on this E on the 5th string and do the same thing up and down, and then on a low E, starting on the open, going up as high as you can go. And then you're going to do your major and minor thirds, your diatonic thirds in E. E is the important guitar key as we've established. So on the top 2 strings, we're going to start with E in the 5th fret, and then G sharp above it. That's the major third. Oh, it's good, by the way, when you learn the major scale in different keys other than C, learn what the note names are, okay? So E major is E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. The notes in E major, they would be called sharps. They wouldn't be called, you wouldn't say E, G flat, because that note could also be thought of as G flat. G, G flat, but you're in the key of E, so E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, D sharp, not E flat. You wouldn't have E and E flat in the same scale. E, D sharp, C sharp, B, A, G sharp, F sharp, E. Okay, so we're going to play our diatonic thirds in E on the top 2 strings, using the note on the B string as our reference point, and walk up the scale. Then do it again on the G and B strings. Remember the major third shape is at the same. It's a bar at the same fret. I mean, you could play it like that, but it's more convenient to bar your finger. Yeah, I'll hit the low E string as a pedal tone. Hit that again for reference. So this will take some practice, and it basically involves a lot of homework on your part because you're doing all these drills and you're figuring these out and you're teaching them to yourself. And this is what your practice will consist of. You're laying a very useful foundation for understanding larger chord structures. Okay, so you can do the same thing on the remaining pairs of adjacent strings. I'll demonstrate on the D and G strings. So I'm going to start on E, and then 1, 2, 3, that's the root, or 1, and the third played together. You're moving that third over to the next string, right? That's as low as you can go. You couldn't go, you would need to have a lower note on the next string, so that's as low as you can go. So do the same with the key of A. B is a little tough. There are a lot of sharp notes in B, but certainly A, D, and G are the big, and E are the big guitar keys. So probably the easiest one next after the key of C would be G, because G only has one sharp in it. All the notes are natural except for F sharp. The G major scale is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So you have this, one note is sharped. 1, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So key of G is a good place to start after the key of C. I'm going to play diatonic thirds in the key of G, starting on the open G string, and then 1, 2, 3, playing that note as a B, and then walking up the scale. What you can do to entertain yourself is tune your A string down to G and let that ring as a drone. Ah, sounds pretty, right? Just get used to running those thirds up and down the neck. Next thing you know, you'll be incorporating it into some of your own musical inventions and solos. The order of keys that I recommend you practice in is C, and then G, and then D. D is the next easiest key because it only has 2 sharps. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. And then will be the key of A. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. That has 3 sharps. Key of E has 4 sharps. E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. Key of B has 5 sharps. B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. All those sharps can be kind of overwhelming and confusing at first if you're still learning the ropes and you're just coming to grips with the natural notes, right? And then all of a sudden you have all these sharps. So if nothing else, learn all this theory, this basic foundation theory in the key of C, and then try to tackle G, and then the key of D, and then A, and then E, and then finally B. Remember to do all your sixths as well. Okay, so going back to the key of G for a minute, instead of playing thirds in G, like this, say on these 2 strings, I could actually use my open G as a pedal tone. Go down as low as you can go. Invert them. Remember I said by inverting, you're taking the lower note and throwing it up an octave, or you could just take the higher note and drop that down an octave. So instead of playing G, B, which is the major third, transpose this B note down an octave. So you have B, G. See, it has the same quality as B, B. So you have the leapfroggy chirp neck. G, B, B, G, G, B, B, G. Okay, you can do the mandolin style 6 on the top 2 strings. Actually, you can hit the open G string. It sounds pretty. Remember, you have an F sharp now in the G major scale, right? G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So make sure you don't play F natural as you were with the C major scale. You know, there's your F sharp. There it is again on top. Your ear should correct you. Should let you know when you're not playing the right note. So be diligent and attentive, and keep that sound of the major scale in your mind's ear. Remember also to practice your diatonic 6 on the pairs that we call every other string. Okay, so you have G right on top, B on the bottom. So we walk up the scale. Right? That's as high as I can go. Again, you could tune your A down to G, so you get this. You entertain yourself, playing something that sounds musically satisfying over that drone note. You could then do it on the next pair of non-adjacent, the every other pair of strings, on the B and D, the second and fourth strings. And I still have my A string tuned down to G, so I can go. Go down as low as you can go. Nice, almost sounds kind of like a Christmas carol or something, two people singing in harmony. Right. Having tuned my G string back up to A, I'm going to do that same thing on the third and fifth strings. Okay, I got my root G on top, and then the third of the scale B on the bottom. And then finally on the fourth and sixth strings. This may seem like a lot of work, and it requires a lot of patience and dedication on your behalf, but in order to get somewhere and really learn the stuff, you need to drill on it. It's like doing math. Like, you can't master algebra until you've done a ton of arithmetic problems for homework, right? And you can't master calculus until you've done a ton of algebra problems for homework. So you kind of need to go through this drill period, not every day for the rest of your life, but for a little while, for a few weeks or months, and the payoff will be huge, because then you'll be able to see how all these relationships work by pairing notes of the major scale. And this will lead us to our next study, which is adding a third harmony, forming what are called a set of diatonic triads. Okay, the next step, before moving on to playing diatonic triads, as I just said, is to learn to harmonize the major scale in fifths. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to play C. I'm using the C major scale. I'm going to play C, which is 1, or the root, and then fifth, the fifth degree of the scale, G. I'm going to play it. You may recognize that sound. That's the sound of a power chord, played low on. we're going to play it up high for now. C, G, and as we did with thirds and sixths, we're going to walk up the scale in fifths, in diatonic fifths. One, I'm using the lower note as my reference point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. You'll notice that all these fifths were moved what's called parallel motion, meaning they both moved by the same degree. You know, up in whole steps and now a half step. So that sounds kind of cool, like power chords. But when I got to here, I deviated because, why? Because in order to stay within the C major scale, which is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, I need to make sure I hit that F note. If I did this, see that F sharp, that's an outside note. You could do that if you want. You can do anything you want in music. You know, there are no rules. But if you want to learn your diatonic fifths in the key of C, you would, okay, C, G. This interval is called a diminished fifth, by the way. This is a perfect fifth. Perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth, diminished fifth, perfect fifth. So I'm on C. If you like, if you don't have bass pedals, you could just try this. Tune down to C. Sounds kind of neat, you know. Okay, so you would do that on all pairs of adjacent strings, just as we did with diatonic thirds. Okay, I'm going to start on C on a G string, and then find, I know G is a fifth, right? C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm playing 1 and 5 together, and I'm going to walk up the scale. Basically, I'm just playing the C major scale on 2 strings at the same time, starting on the root and then the fifth. I got my low bass note here. See, there's my diminished fifth. It's a different shape. All the perfect fifths are 3 frets apart on these 2 strings. The diminished fifth is 2 frets apart. Perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect, perfect. Now we'll go down as low as I can go on those 2 strings. Staying within the scale. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing on the next adjacent pair of strings. See, after a while, you'll get used to doing this systematic routine where you review all your intervals, your thirds, sixths, your fifths, starting, you develop a routine where you start on the top 2 strings and you go to the next 2 strings and the next 2, and becomes a very efficient, thorough practice routine. So I have C, G. That's as high as I can go. And then on these 2 strings, these all look like power chords, except for this one, which is a little odd, especially down in the low register. And then tune back up to E. I will do on the bottom 2 strings. It sounds a little dark and ominous, but for the sake of being thorough, you want to do that, go through the whole routine on all 6 strings. Another way to play fifths, and this is what's going to come in handy in a minute when we learn about the triads, is to play them as we did 6 on non-adjacent strings. If you recall, we could play 6 like this, right, mandolin style. Or we could play them like this, using this hybrid picking or finger picking. We're going to do the same thing with fifths, except now we're going to use the lower string as a reference point. So here's C, the root, and then G up here. A minute ago we did it like this, C, G, and we did these on adjacent strings, right? Now we're going to move that note over here, and we're going to walk up the scale. See, this is your diminished fifth. It actually becomes wider, but the perfect fifth is actually a narrower shape. It's only 2 frets apart. You might find it helpful to count the names or recite names and notes on the lower string, just to keep your place, like 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 7, 1. See that? We have C, G, moves down to B, F, A, E. You would then do it on the next pair of what we call every other string, pair, which would be the 4th and the 2nd strings. So now we have C and G here. And go down as far as we can go. All right, and then on the next pair will be the 5th and 3rd strings. C, and then G happens to be open, and then D, A, E, B, F, C, G, D, A, E, B, F. See that diminished fifth actually has a wide gap here, and then perfect fifth. Go up as high as you can go, and back down. And then finally on the bottom, on the 6th and 4th strings. The point is to learn these intervals any which way you can, all over the place, so you can see all the alternate fingerings, all of which have a useful purpose depending on the context you're playing in, and depending on what chord you're going to or coming from. All right, in the same way that we inverted thirds to make them sixths, we took C, E, a major third, and made it E, C, a minor sixth. You can invert fifths and turn them into fourths. Okay, so C, G, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, root fifth. If you take, say, the bottom note, throw it up an octave, you have G, C. Same thing as if you took the top note, G, move it down an octave, G, C. This is what's called a perfect fourth. So perfect fifths, when inverted, become perfect fourths. And the same thing, a diminished fifth, when inverted, remains a diminished fifth. Interestingly, B and F, if you throw the B up an octave, F, B, it's still the same interval. That's also called the tritone. And we will talk a lot more about that later. We're going to take the major scale. The root note is going to be on top. It's going to be a reference tone. C. These inverted fifths are called fourths because they're 4 scale degrees apart. So for instance, we have G, C. If you were to take the lower note G and just count up, pretend that for a second that that's your major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's a fourth. But we're going to assume that the top note is our reference point now. Okay, so we're going to walk up the scale on the C major scale on the top 2 strings, using the top note as our guide. of these are what are called perfect fourths, except for we have an augmented fourth, which is synonymous with the diminished fifth. It's the same interval known by two different names. You know, when you're doing fifths, you're going, we call that a diminished fifth. When you're doing fourths, that's called an augmented fourth. Okay, so then you're going to go as high as you can go. The key is to just make sure you stay within the C major scale on both strings and don't hit any outside notes accidentally, and you'll be fine. And then you'll learn, you know, it's a lot to digest, but through repetition and practice, you'll learn to see everything is very logical, makes perfect sense. It's based on arithmetic, actually. There's a certain natural beauty in the order of music. Okay, I do the same thing, C and a fourth below it. I'll hit the bass note, make it sound neat. And here's our augmented fourth. Now I'll go even as high as I can go. Feel free to do it twice. You know, it's probably a good idea to run it up and down twice, because then you'll really ingrain it into your brain. You're using your visual memory, your sense of touch, and most importantly, your oral, your ear memory. Fourths on the next pair of adjacent strings. C, G. This is the root, the fourth below it, which is actually, if you recall, it's a fifth inverted. C, G. C is the root, G is the fifth. Now we're putting the root on top. So we have the fifth and then the root on top. But those two notes form a perfect fourth interval. So, a very convenient bar fingering, except for that. Okay, and then. Finally, on the bottom two strings. It's kind of muddy, but you know, you don't want to have that blind spot where you never bothered to learn it because it just sounded muddy. So, you know, practice, get to know that. You might find some use for it sometime.